All right, let's dive into this. Imagine your morning just completely derailed, power outage.
Right.
The hum of everything just dies. And you find yourself somewhere else, maybe a library, somewhere quiet, because, you had to leave.
Yeah, seeking refuge.
Exactly. And in that quiet moment, something pops up in your inbox. And it just completely shifts how you're seeing things. Makes you question the systems we rely on, not just the power grid, but maybe something deeper.
It is fascinating, isn't it? How something so, well, personal, like the local power failing,
Yeah.
can suddenly pull back the curtain on these much bigger systemic weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
It really highlights, the underlying priorities. Like maybe investor returns are getting more attention than, say, basic maintenance on the grid.
Like the author's old Sparky system failing in the heat.
Exactly. It becomes this kind of metaphor, doesn't it? It's not just a blackout. It's about what we as a society actually value enough to keep running smoothly.
Right. And what we kind of let fray around the edges.
Precise.
And, sometimes it's those unexpected moments, those detours, that give you the clearest insights.
Definitely.
So today, we're taking a deep dive into an article that gets right into that. It's a really powerful critique of what the author calls the violence of erasure. But it's also, fascinatingly, a story about survival. How just existing can be a form of resistance. And this whole thing, it got kicked off by an email, seemingly innocent email, from a pretty big-name institution.
Okay.
So our mission today is to kind of peel back the layers here, go from that personal disruption, the power cut, right through to looking critically at how science itself can sometimes be unintentionally play a part in marginalizing people.
Sounds like quite a journey.
It is.
Yeah.
So let's set the scene. Our author, they're in the library, right? Power's out at home.
Right. Displaced.
Yeah. They've just finished some really important work. Feeling, wrung out but good, accomplished.
Feeling, yeah.
But now, they turn to the inbox. Scrolling past all the junk, the usual digital noise.
The detritus, as they call it.
Exactly. Until suddenly a subject line catches their eye. It's got that institutional polish. It just says, Harvard.
Oh, okay, that gets your attention.
Right. That little jolt. You immediately think, okay, this must be something significant. Maybe even good news.
You assume importance, yeah.
But the good news inside, well, it wasn't. The headline read, using acetaminophen during pregnancy may increase children's autism and ADHD risk.
Wow, okay.
And it was presented, the author says, framed in triumph. Like, look what we found. Problem identified.
Right, like a breakthrough for public health.
Yeah. But the author's reaction, it's immediate, visceral. It cuts right through that framing. They write, great news, apparently. Another milestone in the quest to make sure people like me, people like my neurokin, are never born at all.
Oof, that's incredibly stark.
It really is. It just lays bare how these headlines don't just land as information. For some people, they land as, an existential threat.
That specific phrase, good news, for that finding, it is jarring. And the author brings up this really critical idea here, erasure disguised as benevolence.
Say more about that.
Well, it's this idea that sometimes actions or findings presented as helpful, as promoting health or well-being, actually work to erase or devalue certain groups of people. It's a violence subtle enough to be celebrated, as they put it.
Subtle because it's wrapped in positive language.
Yeah.
Health, prevention.
Exactly. It frames conditions like autism or ADHD implicitly as problems, things to be avoided, prevented, rather than, just natural human variations.
Right.
It's not always malicious, I think, is the point. Sometimes it's just societal discomfort with difference. But the effect is that neurodiversity gets treated like a disease, something negative.
And because it sounds scientific, it's hard to push back without sounding like you're against science itself.
Precisely. It's a very subtle kind of violence.
Which brings us back to that personal impact. I mean, really try to imagine that. What does it feel like when a big institution, Harvard no less, presents something like this as a win, implying that your existence, or the existence of people like you, is basically a mistake we should try to prevent in the future?
It goes way beyond just a scientific finding at that point.
Yeah, it becomes this huge societal statement about who gets valued. And maybe more pointedly, who doesn't.
Yeah.
So already feeling unsettled by this good news framing, the author clicks the link, goes to the actual study.
Right, wants to see the details.
Yep. And almost right away, their critical eye starts picking it apart.
And what's really striking is how quickly they see through the academic gloss. They talk about the same correlational scaffolding.
Even with a fancy methodology. They mention the navigation guide.
Right, which is considered a pretty rigorous framework, in environmental health. It's meant to be robust, evidence-based, adds that layer of authority. But the author points out it's still fundamentally about correlation. They talk about the careful dance around causation. Finding a link is not the same as proving one thing causes another.
A crucial distinction, especially here.
Absolutely crucial. And even more damning, they highlight the omission of countervailing evidence. Studies that show something different.
Like what kind of studies?
Things like sibling analyses, big registry studies, findings that don't fit the main narrative. The author notes these are often ignored or maybe buried in an appendix somewhere or dismissed with jargon.
Okay, so it raises questions about the whole picture being presented.
Big questions about the integrity of the narrative they're building.
So it's not just what the study says, it's what it doesn't say, what gets left out or downplayed.
Exactly. And that leads to this really critical point the author makes. Who gets included in the conversation? They explicitly say, the same silence about autistic voices, never once do they ask us what it means to frame our existence as pathology.
Wow. So the research is about them, but never with them.
Precisely. And that lack of engagement, that omission, it shifts the whole dynamic. It's not really about objective understanding anymore, is it? It becomes a narrative constructed about people without their input.
And that's where the ethics get really thorny.
Front and center. When research consistently frames being neurodivergent as like a pathology, a risk, without ever talking to the people actually living it, you're in a really problematic zone. It suggests a bias right from the start, potentially skewing the questions, the interpretation, how it's all presented to the public.
And the author draws this really sharp, painful contrast. They're sitting there reflecting. How much did this study cost? All the grants, the salaries, the institutional overhead, pouring into this research that basically says people like me are the problem. While at the same exact time, they're stuck in a library because the actual physical infrastructure they rely on, the power grid, is falling apart.
Because profits prioritized over maintenance.
Exactly. That contrast, lavish funding for this kind of study versus the decay of essential public systems. It just screams misalignment, wrong priorities.
It's a powerful juxtaposition.
And it's this whole situation, the perceived neutrality, the lack of engagement, the misplaced resources, that leads the author to this incredibly stark conclusion. They say, this is not medicine.
Okay.
It is soft eugenics dressed in epidemiology, a white coat pressed flat to hide the blood on its sleeves.
Wow. That is a heavy, heavy claim. Soft eugenics.
It really is. It forces you to stop and think.
Yeah, absolutely. Historically, eugenics meant overt, brutal things, forced sterilizations, horrific policies.
Right.
Soft eugenics, as the author uses it, is much more subtle, insidious. It works through scientific language, the language of health, risk reduction.
Less so.
By framing certain conditions, certain ways of being as preventable tragedies without ever acknowledging the value or richness of those lives, it promotes a future made brighter, supposedly, by subtracting lives like the authors.
Through things like prenatal screening, public health messages.
Exactly. Things that subtly discourage the existence of people considered undesirable or burdensome. It turns science, potentially, into a tool for social control, defining who fits the preferred mold.
Erasing difference rather than understanding or accommodating it.
Precisely. It prioritizes this clean, sanitized idea of humanity over the messy, complex, diverse reality.
And this whole concept, this soft eugenics, it really gets to the heart of the systemic erasure the author experiences, not just as a neurodivergent person, but, well, at the intersection of their identities.
Right, there's more going on here.
Yeah. The article explores this really complex, contradictory reality of being both seen and unseen simultaneously.
How does that work?
Well, first, the author describes being autistic, and specifically a Gestalt processor.
Okay, processing information more holistically, seeing the whole picture.
Exactly, rather than step-by-step linear processing. And they say that often feels like wearing an invisibility cloak.
Invisibility? How so?
The world just slips its gaze past you, pretends you're not there, hopes you'll just disappear. Systems aren't built for you.
Ah, like public spaces, social cues.
Right. They're built around neurotypical assumptions. So your presence, your needs, they're just omitted, erased through silence, neglect. You're rendered irrelevant.
A quiet kind of erasure.
Very quiet, yeah. But then there's the other side.
Okay.
Being trans. specifically a trans femme. And the author says that is the complete opposite. There's no ignoring that.
So not invisibility.
No. It's like wearing a target. The world notices. And often it lashes out. The erasure here is loud, spectacular, violent.
We see that. Legislative attacks, hostile rhetoric, actual violence.
Exactly. It's not being overlooked. It's being actively targeted, pushed out, invalidated, attacked.
So one system erases you quietly through neglect, and another tries to erase you loudly through aggression.
Exactly. And that's the core contradiction the author describes. To be unseen and hyperseen at once, to carry both cloaks at the same time, and to feel the violence press in from every direction.
Wow. That is an incredibly difficult place to be. Invisible to one system, a target for another.
It's this complex, compounding pressure. The violence isn't just added together, it kind of multiplies, creates these unique vulnerabilities. Just existing becomes this daily act of defiance.
A constant resistance.
Yeah. But here's the turn. The article isn't just about the pressures, it's also deeply moving about how the author finds resistance, finds meaning within all this.
Okay, how?
Remember that vital work they finished right before the power cut?
Yes, the 50 important pages.
Right. In completing that work, sending it off, the author has this profound realization, a moment of strange grace, they call it.
Grace.
Yeah. They realize that this inconvenient human, autistic, gestalt processing, trans femme, uniquely qualified. All those things that make them different, may be targeted or erased.
Yeah.
Their voice, their experiences, their way of seeing the world.
Yeah.
Those aren't deficits.
Yeah.
They're the very reason I can do what no one else is qualified to do anywhere in the world.
Wow. That's turning it completely inside out.
Exactly. The things used to erase or target them become the source of their unique strength, their purpose, reframing identity from a burden to an asset.
A powerful, powerful insight.
It really is. And it fuels this sense of resistance. They write, the world says I should not exist, yet here I am, producing evidence, shaping argument, offering something no other person on the planet could.
Yeah.
That is a victory, however small. A foothold on the cliffside.
So existence itself and creation become acts of defiance.
Absolutely. It's not about big protests necessarily. It's the quiet, persistent act of affirming yourself through your work, your presence, despite everything telling you not to.
And what's fascinating there is how those individual acts, that creation, that self-expression, how powerful they become.
Right.
Especially against that systemic pressure to just disappear. The author talks about finding strength in tiny victories.
Yeah, not one big win.
No. Each act of completion, each word sent into the world is a thread tying me back to myself. It's this beautiful image of resilience, asserting your value, carving out meaning even when society says you shouldn't be there.
That work becomes proof, a counter-narrative.
Exactly, tangible proof against the violence of erasure.
And crucially, the author says this resistance, it carries joy.
Joy, even with the pain.
Yeah, not like easy happiness, but a deep satisfaction, a self-validation. They say the headlines still wound, the studies still bruise, but the work I do against all odds, against all silence, carries joy. It is not triumph in the grand sense, but it is enough. Enough to steady me, enough to prove the violence wrong, enough to keep going.
It's not about ignoring the pain then, it's about finding strength in the act of creation, despite it.
Exactly, proving the erasure wrong. One word, one page, one breath at a time. It's just, yeah, a profound statement on inner resolve.
What a journey indeed.
Right. From a simple power cut, revealing fragile systems, to this deep critique of scientific headlines and that violence of erasure, and then landing on this incredibly powerful, defiant, even joyful celebration of just being, finding purpose in your unique existence.
It really shows how those everyday things can unlock these huge societal issues if we look closely.
Definitely forces you to look deeper.
And zooming out, I think this deep dive really underscores how vital it is to really question the sources of our news, especially from big institutions.
Critically examine them.
Yeah. Ask, who really benefits from this narrative? What might be missing? And maybe most importantly, actively seek out and amplify the voices that usually get ignored.
Especially when the topic is literally about them.
Yeah.
Their lives, their identities.
Exactly. It's not just, an academic thing. It feels like a human imperative.
Yeah.
For a society that's actually more inclusive, more just.
Absolutely. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. As you go about your day, when you see those headlines, especially the ones framed as good news, just take a second, pause, and ask, who is this news really good for?
All right.
And who or what might be getting erased or pushed aside? in the celebration.
Yeah, what's the cost of that good news?
How do we make sure all voices are heard? That all ways of being are actually valued, celebrated even, not just tolerated? Or worse, seen as a problem we need to solve?
It's a vital question for all of us to think about and maybe act on.